Alright, so we are back on the bike again today because I want to redo the video for the highway. I didn't think that the information we got from that video was very good. We got some what I consider barely above useless information. So I want to redo this with a little bit more of a scientific bent, so we can understand more of what's going on here. I found a dyno chart so we could actually see what the rear wheel horsepower is and when the bike makes it. And I created another chart showing how much power the bike's putting out at what speed, based upon what my RPMs are at any given speed across the board. And I'll show you that photo here. But what I want to do is I want to go mix it up with some traffic, because that's one thing we didn't have in the previous video. It was a pretty slow day, so we're going to jump out about rush hour now, which isn't super heavy around here where I live, but still traffic. So we're going to get on the highway again in traffic and see what happens. Now this time, I'm not just going to get on and just give it gas and go. I am going to try to maintain my speed around 65 to 70 miles an hour and see what that does for us, because that's the speeds I'm normally going to run. So if I get on the highway at those speeds, I'm going to keep track of how many cars go past me. And I'm not talking about cars in the fast lane or anything like that going by. I'm talking about people who have to pull out from behind me and pass me. I'm going to watch in my mirror and keep track of what's going on. I'm also going to keep track of how many cars I actually pass, if any. So we'll see how that ratio works out. So let's fast forward this and get to the highway. Alright, so we have made it back to the highway, and we are going to start our test. If the audio doesn't turn out too great at speed, I'll just play some music over this and do a time lapse or something. But we will keep score starting right about as soon as I get up to speed. Oh yeah, we got traffic coming up behind us here. This is what I wanted. I wanted to get into traffic and see what's going to happen. So I'm going to try not to go over 70 miles an hour. Speed limit here is 70 on this road, so I'm going to try to hover right under the speed limit. So all these cars are in the fast lane heading on by. I'm watching the cars in my lane behind me. If they pull out to pass, we'll start keeping score. We're going to go about 30 miles, so this is going to be a trip. So at 70 miles an hour, I'm doing 5,500 RPM. Now I've got a car in my lane behind me. I don't know if you guys can see in the mirror, but he's not getting any closer. He's not gaining on me or anything. So I'm not holding anyone up. So I'm going to try to keep my RPMs around 5,000, a little over 5. Like I said, we'll just hover around 65, 70. I'm actually doing under the speed limit. So if I'm going to travel on the highway, this is the speeds I'm going to run. And this is what I need to see. And this is what the information is actually more important if someone's going to buy this bike as their commuter bike. If you have a commute on a highway, like I said, this is a 70 mile an hour highway, and this is what it's like. So I had that truck pull in front of me, but he didn't come from behind, my lane behind me. He was in the fast lane when I got on the interstate. The car that was behind me is getting ready to take this left exit. Now I've got another vehicle in a semi, it looks like, behind me in my lane. So we'll see if they catch up with me and overtake me. And I could go faster. I'm just not going to. Oh yeah, the semi's coming up pretty quickly. So he's going to go around. Yeah, I could go faster, but I'm not going to. I'm going to hold my speed here. Now that left exit we just passed, that's another highway going east to west. We're going north to south right now. And the speed limit on that one is 65 miles an hour. This speed that I'm traveling is the speed limit on that highway. This one's just faster, so I came over here. So I'm watching the truck. I'm holding the truck up now. And he's changing lanes and coming on by right now. And another truck behind him. We'll see if he catches up and what he does. So there's one. That's one person that had to go around me so far. Alright, so the semi-truck behind me is actually holding up traffic now. He's moved over to pass me, but he can't get by because we are on a hill. And he can't keep up on speed-wise. So now he's got a traffic jam behind him. So this is going to be hard to score here. This white SUV behind me will be going by after the truck at some point. Vehicle crash over there. Let this truck over. He wants to get over. So I'll back off and let him go. So now he was holding up a big line of cars, so they're all going to go by. Alright, so I got another vehicle coming up behind me. He's going to go by. This one here with the roof rack, he had to go around me. Alright, this is going to slow up because these semis here are going to merge over. They're going to slow everybody up in just a second. I've got another truck coming up on my right. And traffic coming up on my left, so I'm going to stay where I'm at for the moment. Let's get by this truck. And I've dropped down to 60 behind this guy, not because of the bike, but because of traffic holding me up. I'm not going to pass him because I think he's going to speed up once we crest this hill right here. And then he just have to turn around and pass me again eventually, I guess. So we'll let him go, and I'll just hang in behind him. Ah, look at the mountains. said, I feel like I'm kind of going into the wind. And at 21 and a half horsepower or something like that, and I'm not even making that because I'm only doing 5,500 RPMs. You know, is that enough to overcome the wind resistance right now? Probably not. Not too much faster than this. So we get to the next off-ramp, we'll turn around and see how the wind is going back. Slow down here, I'm going too fast. Get away from this guy. Alright, so I had to give it some gas there, but I'm going to slow it back down again. So these trucks here have a big run coming off that downhill. So they speed up quite a bit on the downslopes. So we'll go ahead and turn around at this off-ramp and we'll go the other way. The bad thing about that is we're going to be kind of facing the sun on camera, so this isn't going to look real good once we turn around. Yeah, I think I could cruise this speed. You know, what am I doing? About a little over 5,000 RPM. I could cruise this quite a ways. I think without causing any trouble to the bike. I wouldn't want to do 75, 80. I wouldn't want to try to maintain that speed, but between 65 and 70, yeah, I think that's doable. And here we got another truck. I think I passed him earlier. I don't know how we should score passbacks. Actually, I think I'm not going to take the highway back. There is a parallel road here. I think I'm going to take that instead. Because like I said, I want to avoid the highways if possible. Because I didn't buy this bike for cruising the highways. I just might need to get on it every now and then to connect to another road. And that's what we're going to do right here, I think. So this should lead to a paralleling road that parallels the interstate. And I can cruise at the speed that I really want to travel at. So every now and then I'll have to get on the highway like that right back there and mix it up with traffic. And I just wanted to see how the bike did in traffic in relation to everything else. So it seems like cars are going to go flying by. Semis, I'm going to be mixing it up with them because they're going to pass me on the downslopes when they really start putting the pedal down. And then I'm going to catch them at the uphills and pass them there. So I'm kind of going to be mixing around with those guys, it looks like. So the Himalayan did all right. That stretch of highway. I have to go home and count up the score, see how many times I got passed versus how many cars I passed. And at 65 to 70 miles an hour, it's not terrible because, I mean, I was driving and riding motorcycles when the speed limit was 55 nationwide before it went to 65 miles an hour. And now it's up higher than that. So, I mean, some people aren't going to be content at running those low speeds. Like I said, all I wanted to do is jump on the highway and do runs like that. connecting one road to another when I need it, because I want to be on the 55 to 60 mile an hour roads. But at the price of this bike, a lot of people are looking at it, want to know if it can do highway commuting. If you're content to stay in the slow lane, yeah, I could do it. I wasn't in any situation where I was at a loss for power to maintain speed, to keep up with everybody around me or get out of anybody's way. If you're looking for a gold wing replacement or something like that, I'd say look elsewhere. But we're only talking about a small 400cc bike. It's really not designed for the highway. So we're taking it into an element that it's not designed or meant to be in and seeing if it works. And it does to an extent, not great, but for the amount that I want to use it, it does fine. So the Himalayan on the highway, what do I think? Believe it or not, I'm going to advise don't do it. It did fine power-wise, keeping it at a reasonable speed, but something else raised its head that I noticed on the way home, because that trip was about 60 miles. I did most of it on the highway. I took that side road, and then I got back on the highway again, and I burned, according to the fuel gauge, 3/4 of a tank of gas. So that means my fuel economy suffered tremendously running at those speeds. So I'm going to try to avoid the highway as much as possible now, more so than I had planned because of that. So even though the bike might run along fine and deal with traffic fine between 65, 70 miles an hour, burning that kind of fuel, you're going to run out of gas quickly. You're not going to make it very far. So yeah, this is going to stay on the side roads. Now you can also change your gearing a little bit with your sprockets. You can change front and rear sprockets and things like that, and raise your gearing up a little bit so you're not running as high of RPMs, and that would help out if you're going to plan on running the highway more. I don't plan to do that, but because I want the more off-road capabilities. I want to keep all of that the way it is. I don't want to change it. But if you plan to ride more highway than I do, or more road than I do, you might want to look into changing that gearing, because I did burn a ton of fuel, and that was just astonishing once I seen what happened. I don't have an exact figure, but the fuel gauge shows 3/4 of a tank of fuel gone, which it should not have burnt that much fuel in that range. Maybe 1/4 of a tank at that distance, but not 3/4. So there it is. I said we learned a lot about the horsepower, the torque, because the horsepower starts falling off above 6,000 RPMs, so you get diminishing returns above 70 miles an hour or so. So reliably, the top speed's really going to be about 70 miles an hour, even though it can do over 80. That's not a reliable top speed, because you have diminishing returns above 6,000 RPMs, and your torque has already fallen off back at 4,500 RPMs. So your speed is going to be affected by inclines, wind, weight, just wind resistance, things like that. So I wouldn't call anything above 70 miles an hour reliable speed. So this was actually a really good test. It was an eye-opener for me, because I learned a little more about the bike, and I learned where it wants to run and where I need to be running it at. So I hope that was informative, and I think that was a much better test than the previous one. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, and take care. I'll catch you next time.